Any questions concerning this motion?
Move that they be accepted.
All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstained? Treasurer?
Okay, given that we're only a week in the end, I will say that, checking accounts have balance $57,163.44. Renovation fund is still at $52,517. Savings account $62,294.21. And the grammar department account is still $44,104.24. I'm showing $290.50 on cash on hand, but I don't know that's wrong because I haven't counted anything from the past weekend. So.
Okay, I have a question. Since all of the first Western balance the same amounts as was effective as of November 1st, can I use that November 1st
Yes.
for this?
Yep. And the first Western checking is going to change because we have a payout from the unpaid somewhere around something over $5,000. I haven't got the notes yet.
Now, when you say payout, you mean something coming to us or
That's the credit card payments, that we have received for the past week. It's gonna be a little, something over $5,000.
Alice did well.
I don't have the exact number because last week it came in on 11 o'clock. So suffice it to say, Alice has done very well. We are at 800 and, last I looked, 820 total ticket sales for the week. Friday is full. Friday is that 10 seats left. Saturday and Sunday, there's lots of improvement.
Were seats reserved for the people who were winning the giveaways?
They were here.
No.
There's two more.
There's two more, one on Friday, one on Sunday.
Oh, are there? I haven't seen that.
They haven't been drawn yet, so they have till Wednesday.
Okay, so when are they for?
For Friday and then for
Oh,
Sunday.
Friday's gonna be tough because all I've got is singletons.
Oh dear. It's 2 tickets for Friday and 2 tickets for Sunday.
There might be 2 backaways, at least there were.
I mean, there was no promise of where the seats would be sitting.
Okay, they
It's
might-
just that there would be seats.
Okay.
So,
Okay. If we need to, we can put them in FL 2, 1, whatever it is.
What would be over there?
Floor,
Yeah.
row floor 1, FL 1.
Somewhere.
It's floor FL1 and FL1 and FL2.
Okay.
So those seats are available, we'll use those.
Anything else, Treasurer?
Don't think that there's anything else I need to mention.
Ed, finance?
Yes, Finance Committee met on the 1st. The old business that was discussed was the 990 report was filed on October 19th. We reviewed the financial reports for verification and corrections. Kathy presented us with the current standing on the grant reports at the time. I'm sure that's been updated by now. The only new business that was discussed was the idea of a paid archivist, which I believe is on new business for today. And then we can meeting at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Old business. If you have your questionnaire that you would like to turn in. I haven't heard anything from Katie about the acting classes. Anybody else? Okay, maybe next time we see her at the meeting, oh, just so I let everybody know, Penny has resigned from the board. Sorry, I forgot to say that at the beginning. Most of you probably know. In memoriam discussion, is there any discussion on that right now, or?
I think we're probably, I've spoken with Nancy, I think I've spoken with you very briefly about what possibilities we can do in the board insert, which we didn't get to do for this show. Anyway, we can work it together for, Brian, there hasn't really been much that has come in the past year. So it could be inserted into the board, insert, without.
That's good. Okay, True North,
Don't even worry about it for now. They're busy working on their new season and trying to fit it in. It's just not been forthcoming at this stage.
I left this last one on there because I wasn't sure if that got taken care of.
It's done.
Thank you. New business, Santa on stage.
Cancel that.
Okay, the next thing is the Regency parking proposal. It seemed like forever ago, but just because it keeps normal. We got a call from, help me out,
Randy,
Randy, that's right. I'll
Yeah.
get you. I know. And he had a couple different proposals for us. His first one was, would we be willing to give up our garage parking spot? In return, he would give us 17 parking spots in his parking lot out here. They're the ones closest to the,
Yeah.
But only after 4 o'clock.
right, only after the kids are out of school because they pay for those.
Non-school.
Right,
So it would be available, so.
and Friday night, Saturday night. Yeah. So that was one.
The same way then for when you start in the garage.
They want-
No, they want exclusive use.
They want it for their administrative assistant or person that,
And it's like,
she doesn't like to walk from the parking lot.
No, actually, she doesn't like leaving her car on the street.
Oh.
He has not offered her a parking spot. No, he never mentioned that she was being offered a parking spot back there. The whole point was she didn't like having to go out every 2 hours home for Not just under her, apparently.
Little parking.
No, there's tenants in the building. They're saving something because they think they're going to have, Cognizant might possibly rent space in the building, and they will need some parking, but they also are renting their parking, main parking spots to kids at Central Campus at $50 a month. And so they, I think they don't want to, take that away.
I guess my opinion is no, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, sure. The second thing was that, he proposed the idea of possibly buying Lieutenant Billy Plus.
His idea of
And tearing it
why,
down.
his idea of why he was offering the parking spots was he felt that we could offer certain season ticket holders by paying an additional price, a guaranteed parking spot. But because we don't have, our flex passes don't work with specific days and specific times, that wouldn't work.
My question is, he manager of the event center?
Yes, working for Cypress Development.
Okay.
Question, what did you, this, son?
The first thing is he wants to get a secretary. And I thought he made mention that if she ever does park somewhere, his words, is kind of a diva, I guess, and doesn't like to walk. So So that was
See
one
that
thing.
because she might have to walk around the block if
Right.
there's other people
Yeah.
park.
Their entrance is on the street.
Their working entrance is in the alleyway that goes back to the supervision.
Between our.
Between our tenant building and their building.
It's purpose for buying the tenant building, I
Down
believe.
that little aisle.
Yeah. Well, the door is right here.
It's purpose for buying the tenant building, as far as I understood, was to tear it down. And so they didn't have to look at it, more or less.
Well, I mean, if they give us a decent price,
Do they offer a price?
No.
they'll tell them that local you can buy the property.
Well, I was gonna give you the numbers that I found. Oh, we got the tenant building. Yeah, that's okay. I started an analysis on what we could sell the building for. Downtown buildings are going anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000. If you take that going down the middle, most properties between 60 and 80,000, as a matter of fact, the cigar bar that's opening, that building went for 75,000. So any of the downtown buildings is on Central. Any of the downtown buildings typically are about 70 to 75,000 if you want to take the middle road. That building being tear down, the longer it's vacant, the worse condition it's going to be in. So 60 to 80,000 would be the wide range. I would say if you went 60, 65, 70, 75,000 on the purchase, we're doing very well.
Then Vegas to offer.
How much would it be if we kept the property and did tear down and did Pirates of the tear down? Like, you wanted to keep the lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty pricey.
And then,
Oh, yeah, it's pricey to tear
Also
down.
tearing it up, it'd be-
and then one other possibility, what would be the likelihood of our being able to do something like establishing a wall, where the north side of the garage is, and the actual garage area where we have the most of the things that we're still storing. If we were to wall that off, so we could retain that, especially since we've got the door that leads into our building.
Basically, still building
But keep the garage.
footprint and keep the garage.
And keep it as a store, as a
That's
storage
the
unit.
option, Asia, like
And out,
re-configuring
then we
stuff.
could
or no?
build
Oh, yeah, you can, yeah, you can do that. You would have to have it surveyed, you know, so that's gonna cost you. Because a survey nowadays is about $600, $800. And then go from there. Of course, then you're selling less, so the price goes down.
I mean,
Might be worth it.
we're not doing much of the building and risking the edge use, we're gonna have to put a substantial amount of money.
Right.
In my personal opinion, I'd be totally for having the lot resurveyed, keeping that so we can have our own storage unit, our own parking area, and then selling out the rest of the property. I mean, personally,
So we can keep that storage there.
Or sell it to anybody, I don't care who it is. I mean,
Well, they have the rest of it.
Right, right.
If the board decides to go in that direction to sell that, makes the pitch.
There you go.
Just what
We
you're
we have the perfect person.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. I think if we could wall that off and keep that ours, the whole garage area. I mean, in the summer, granted, we don't use it all the time, but it was extremely handy to have.
Even if
Coming in and out, with big pieces in there, and especially storing pieces.
we have the door, and if we could, we go ahead and tear it down and build a new structure just for storage on that footprint, as far as where the edge of that building is.
Yeah.
But for
Yeah.
keeping it a section for a single vehicle. I can tell you that being able to have at least one person who is the one who is the last
Right.
person out of the
But-
building at night.
That's true.
But I guess my point is to keep,
Yeah.
where
Keep
the
the footprint.
driveway is and the garage is,
Yeah.
keep that part of the
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
And
Especially
then
if we
we
can
can do whatever we want on it, build a new structure there. We can go the same size as it is right now, we could go longer.
Or we just keep it the same.
Or we can have a loading dock, I mean, that has been
Exactly.
in
Right.
a loading dock area, has been
So we
convenient.
could, there's a lot of things we could do there and make it a lot more practical.
So I guess the next step would be to look into getting a survey lined up and find out how much it's gonna cost and what it costs.
Yeah. And entertain an offer.
Yeah, I mean, the office 45,000. I mean, people are gonna have a different reaction when it's 60 to 80.
Well, that's what you're putting your numbers as, you're starting to keep growing a lot. I mean, it's
Yeah.
It's gonna be a little.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would, if we were offering a proposal, I'd always say you eyeball and let them make their offer and try and meet somewhere. You don't want to lowball yourself. I would say for the full thing now, 80,000, after survey, maybe 60,000.
I think we're just like Asian handle it.
Yeah.
I think it's better than situation down. So,
Could I ask a question on the parking thing? Would there be a proposal to Randy that he allows us to use 17 spaces in exchange for free advertising? We see 1,000 people. Yeah, we could, what's one more insert?
One
Problem
point
is,
on one of
The
the
one
reasons
thing he
why.
specifically was wanting after this garage, if we won't give him the garage, he's not interested in giving us the.
But the whole impetus for this was our patron let him know loud and clear
yeah.
that they weren't happy with parking.
Well, perhaps our patrons could let him know that they would consider their place if they had. those. Hey, we didn't purposely for the gala, purposely didn't even look at her because of the parking. Issue.
So,
Well, I guess I'm not really a very nice person. Because I don't really feel well, very helpful.
Well, we don't do that.
But
I
the
mean,
fact
there's
that
on-the-street
our
parking that they
patrons
take
are
up all the
saying,
time.
"Hey,
Yes.
we want more parking," I think that makes people look at that.
What?
Because it's for the patrons, not.
The biggest, the
I would-
biggest problem that I see if we did take those 17 spots for our patrons, how are we gonna let them know?
And it's only.
And it's only 17 out of.
And what if they went into the 18th one? Ooh.
They're parked in the
Yeah.
wrong one.
Yeah, you've done it before, he would come in during the show and raise a stink because someone's parked somewhere else. And threaten to have me.
the other wrinkle is that might happen, depending on what happens with the Minot Public School building.
Yep.
If they convert Central Campus to a middle school, his paid parking goes away.
Yeah. It's gonna force his hand to have to deal if he wants.
We can't control that, obviously.
I think we're better off sending him out on that.
Yes.
Well, I just wanted to listen to, the fact that the patrons felt strong enough to complain.
And they must have known.
I have told patrons that if they don't like it, they can complain to the Regency. Because they asked why they can't park. I said, the Regency will not allow it. They would like to take it up with them.
The biggest complaint that I personally heard is that we have been telling our patrons that they can park across the street in that open place next to the Old Eagles building, which is what is public parking in the evening. And yet, anytime they have an event happening at the Regency,
That's right.
everybody going there
That's right.
uses up all those parking spaces.
And
And
he's
don't
the one
leave
that-
anything, they don't use the ones behind us.
That's what he said.
We found out that people aren't really using our parking lot and stuff.
That's right, well, you could have told them.
And here's another proposal. If we decide to own a portion of the building, you could always ask if they'd be willing to trade the parking lots for some off the building, if they would be willing to sell us.
The only thing I worry about that is that
It's tricky.
the Cypress development unfortunately has a history of having a lot of slightly not upfront. I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a slippery.
It would be- I mean, and
So back to
what
that.
I would worry about is they say, yes, you can have those, and then a year and a half down the road, say, oh, well, now we want to charge you.
No, that we would take control of the property.
No, we would be foolish to trust them.
Yeah.
I want to have some.
We would have to have something right now, obviously.
Yeah.
If we're something that built something in the building, that would have to be in a contract. And it would be-
This is the same realtor.
So it sounds like Asia's gonna get us more information, and then she'll let us know. So,
If there's nothing else with that, we'll move on. The proposal for a visual archivist.
Brittany, since you're the one who initially came up with the concept, would you like to at least get your concept out there?
Sure. So we were talking, and with the 50th season, especially, it's really just come to light that certain shows don't document it to the same extent. It's just that there's nobody who is available, interested, knows to come in and do it. There are shows where we have holes where we just don't have any photos to document those shows. Even recent shows have gone without someone coming in and taking photos. So we were discussing the fact that it would be nice to have one or two people on hand whose job it was to come in on like the first or second dress rehearsal before the show goes up and take photos of the show so that Mouse River players would have a digital record of the show. The aim would be to provide at least 20 photos that kind of cover the extent of the show, and then they can be used in advertisements, on the websites, for social media, in the lobby in the event that there's not someone to do a lobby display, but that Mouse River players would always have a visual record of the show that was done.
And full ownership of it.
Correct, and would retain the rights to use the photos as kind of as they see fit. I don't think it would be exclusive if the photographer wanted to use them to promote themselves, their own business. I think something could be done, to balance it out, but Mouse River players would have full use of the photos. With the exception of saying that someone else took the photo, obviously, and presenting them as their own
They would be
creative use,
credited.
but
They'd have to be credited.
correct. Just to keep those holes and gaps from happening, because it's a lot of fun for people to go back and be able to look at those shows, see how it was done, see who was in it, things like that. And in some cases, we don't even have a program for a show, we just know it was done, and we have no other reference to be able to look at.
It would be nice to have it on the website.
Absolutely. And so, like hiring one or two people for a small stipend to come in and take photos. I would lean towards having two people kind of on deck. That way, if for whatever reason, the one person is not able to, if they're on vacation or something like that, we don't suffer and they're not locked into obligating themselves to the 5 dates. But it is something that we plan pretty well in advance. We know when our shows are and things like that.
So you said it, but I was missing it off. Where would the photos go?
So the photos would be housed. My recommendation is for Mouse River players to purchase some USB drives so they can be housed directly on a USB drive. Those can be plugged into any computer. So they would be saved digitally. They could also be dropped into cloud storage. They could be copied onto the computer so we'd have backups.
And we could print
Yep.
a copy to have.
And then hard copies printed.
So who would have access to them?
Anybody,
Get onto the computer.
anyone who would have access to, like, if they were stored in the Dropbox, anybody who would have access to the Dropbox would have them. Primarily, it would be board members And then the person taking the photos would need to be able to access, transmitting them to the board.
Okay, so I'll just call it photographer, gets the pictures and gets them to the webmaster as well. Or the webmaster
Checks them over,
The webmaster picks them.
selects them, it goes onto a digital, to a drive. That drive is then handed over to the board.
And master plans, it's easy enough to buy, they're not expensive, you buy both USBs and then
Give it
just,
to the board secretary.
you know,
Keep her board stuff, and they take it.
At the bottom of that
Little
line, or
line.
anything
like,
else.
honestly, just being able to take those USBs and keep putting them, keeping them in a box somewhere, labeling what's on them. And if they're just
And
transferred onto
once
a
we get
computer.
our computer set up with
Yeah.
our own drives and things like that, we could actually even get a sub-drive that could be specifically for.
The more copies we have, the better chance we have of not being corrupted.
But to try and not link it to a show, for example, that person would not be responsible for taking headshots from the show or lobby display stuff. That would still be the choice of the director and things like that. This would simply be for MRP to have a record.
But in the event, for
But if-
example,
Could be
if
used.
there is nobody who is willing to step up and take photos for the lobby, then Master of Players has photos that can be printed.
I like, very, very much like the idea of consistency. So there is consistency, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. When we have looked at past photos, one of the drawbacks, there may be 1,000 pictures for one show and they are not labeled. We do not know the label.
Part of the.
That is,
do not know the- And the date, including
There would
the year.
be, yes, the person who's taking would have to provide at least, if nothing else, a piece of paper that has a list of all of the people that are in the cast or whoever. what the
So can we
pictures
just
are
have
from.
them take a picture of the program?
Yeah, absolutely. If I want to look at a picture online, I want to know that that's Susie.
And most of the time, the program would be easy enough to have either
Absolutely.
photocopied, pictured, or even have the file of the program
Since we're
sent
doing
with,
digital
and just,
copies.
and then just put it into a folder altogether. You've got the program, you've got all your pictures. And then the date would be embedded in the photo, but could also, like, the name of the photos and then the items within that folder could be renamed to reflect the performance dates, the year, and what the show was.
You guys were talking about $25, is that what you were saying?
I've heard so many people
Or
want
was it
to look at.
$25? I can't remember what we
We had
discussed.
randomly thrown out $25 per time that they did it.
Yeah.
Because if, looking at the guidelines for the other compensations, we don't want to make this a big, huge thing. We're not talking about hiring a professional. Yes, I'm touting my own family, but I've got two very, very talented photographers in Brittany and Courtney who have done a lot of work for us. I'm sure in either case, they would, one or the other would be willing to step in and help.
I too can do that.
And we could say, and even keep like, primary, secondary, tertiary.
And that's why, and having, Ken brought up a good point, having more than one person is a good idea, because if I was brought on to do it, and I'm in San Fran, I have to take photos.
Can I just motion that we do this?
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to have a archivist, and Asia has second. All those in favor of hiring an archivist or paying a stipend? Okay. All those
Yes, you
opposed?
have an opinion, Abby. and
Oh,
Trinity.
yeah.
You're not an
You don't have
official
a
vote, but you have.
Well,
a-
we like to know what you
have an
think,
opinion.
so
Yeah.
you're
You
welcome
guys
to
are
raise
allowed
your
to
hand.
offer input.
Please. All those opposed?
That was.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, she was working. All those abstained? Motion carried.
Yeah, description of what we want.
Yeah, I would do that.
Those
for
are
sure.
things that would be helpful also, to have that person do, is take photographs for the class.
I think it would also be appropriate, it's being developed, it's new. We can't possibly have thought of everything right now.
Well, you can use the
But
photos
as it's-
however you want.
Yeah.
But as the
Model.
position develops itself, that there be guidelines, so that you figured out that this is what needs to be done, when it needs to be done. Start preparing a little
I know
direction sheet.
Ken has
so-
started, he sent me some proposed guidelines. I know Brittany and I have talked about some. I wanted to get Courtney in on it because like I say, she's done a lot of photography stuff. If there's anybody else who would like to submit some ideas, I am more than willing to coordinate whatever ideas come into me. Just email your ideas and we'll come up with a general format list and then go from there.
Why don't we are on the subject of photo, just to quickly throw it out, and I appreciate you mentioning it. We walk a pretty fine line, taking photos specifically of people under the age of 18 and then using them on our social media sites. It's a very fine line that we are walking, and we could get in a lot of trouble if there is a parent out there who does not want their child photographed. We have to be doing media releases specifically for anyone under the age of 18. Adults, it's kind of fair game, but kids are protected, and so we do need to make sure anybody under the age of 18, parents are signing off saying that it's okay to post their photos.
It's even a
I
good
do
idea
have
for
one.
a-
It is,
Made up that we use for Missoula. I go to events, I sign a release every time.
I think that's, needs to be a given.
What? Yeah, I think that's just people.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Does it count when a fellow person under 18 posts another? person?
If we're posting on behalf of Mouse River players, we should have the media release. Most people are going to be okay with it, and we haven't run into anything yet. And this is something that I really started thinking about once I started teaching, because I do have about 5 kids in my class that I cannot take photos of. I can't even use it to distribute like within the classroom. And we don't want to get hit with some sort of a lawsuit because we're sharing a photo of a kid who's not supposed to be photographed.
Is the same thing true to release names for the press?
I would think so, especially
Under
under
age,
age.
but that's one of those, it's hard to say.
But that's where a media release would come in.
Yeah,
You can use
And you do
your.
that as your casting.
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah, and how many times has Minot Taylor just randomly printed every single name of
Right.
everybody in?
but just because it's done doesn't. mean
No, but
it's
I'm
done.
wondering if they might know more than we do.
It's a little bit of a different situation because hardly come in audition for a show if you
Right.
don't want to be named publicly.
Right.
So
Right.
that is our favorite.
Got that.
Raise your hand.
We have used photo releases in the past. I have several styles. I know that we have them for Missoula. It's also a very easy thing. If we can come up with an audition form, it can be on the audition form. And that way we don't have to have separate pieces of paper and things being handed to, one person and not another. So if anybody would be interested in coming up with a template audition form.
Well, Chris has a great one. If we could just add in a line about, I think that would be.
Yeah, I think most of us we can fall into that, but if we get that and we just say, this is the one we're going to use, we have it digitally available, we've got copies in the office, and then we just don't use anything different. Again, uniformity, so we all know what's going on.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So
The next thing is a show producer for every show. So yes, a lot of times we have multiple board members in a show, but sometimes there's just a lot of miscommunication between people, and some people think that one thing is happening and it ends up not.
I would propose that every show, whether it be have 10 board members in it or not, we have a producer that, is kind of the communicator. Have you gotten this done? Have you gotten this done? Just checks in with the director and the tech people. That would just be a proposal that I would hope maybe the season committee could kind of ask, okay, Nancy, can you be the producer for this show? Lynn, can you be the producer for this show? Stuff like that, so it's already, done.
I guess it's gonna be, who's going to be assigning producer?
They're not necessarily getting the
Or
direction.
asking people to produce?
Well, I mean, there's plenty of people on the season committee, somebody can reach out to people, right? Or-
Okay, I'm not sure that this would necessarily be a season committee thing.
Okay.
The biggest question and drawback that I have, and this is only because of experience. There are very few people currently on the board that have any experience in having been an active producer and know where the compensation chart is, know how to get hold of the audition form, know how soon you have to get the posters picked up. Very few of us know that. So before we even consider doing it for every show, I think what we need is a commitment from the people on the board to learn how to do it.
Should we perhaps, make an ad hoc committee for production? Something so that we can, we'll have a group of people who will be putting together the guidelines and teaching people how to.
So we
Yeah.
have- we
But
have-
it's mostly for teaching people how to be producers.
Now, we have a lot of the guidelines already. I think they need to be a little updated now. But again, we need to be able to have the people.
We're missing the consistency of it.
So I think that's a big thing, is the consistency. I mean, so it seems like some people have the information, others do not. I don't even know where to get it. I would have to propose it as a plan. No, because, I mean, I would have. But at the same time, I mean, if nobody knows where it's at, I'm not gonna. I don't want to have actually fail or whatever, if I'm. So I have no problem helping out as being a producer, if we can just put everything in one place. And then if the next show doesn't have one, Ed can step
I
in
mean,
and
if we
say,
had a
okay.
producer binder that just reflects in the office and that person has a checklist every show. I mean, that should be simple enough.
Nancy, do you think you and I could work with system coffee and work this out?
I'll take a cup of coffee.
It's getting the info that we.
The point I want to make is, yes, I can come with all of this, but the board, in truth, in essence, in actuality, in reality, the board is the producer, not one person. Mouse for Players is the producer of every show. It is the responsibility of not just one producer, one committee member from the board. It's the entire board that produces. We fund it, we, do everything for it. So we can come up with a guideline for a person, but it isn't a single person.
But I think if we don't have a representative as the producer, you're
Also,
back in
the players doesn't look the
communication.
same as the production company.
We are the producers, and who makes up that?
We are the
Well,
production
people.
company, but there has to be one person.
Argument against keeping that in mind is, what's your opinion on being a producer? How soon would you have the posters made? How soon would you have the posters made? How soon would you have the posters made? Every different person, if you think of it as all of us being a producer, may not have the same.
It's the stuff that's slipping through the cracks and falls to being
Make
wrong.
sure that,
Not because somebody's doing a bad job, just because the communication is not there.
the other thing is it needs to be someone who is not otherwise involved in the creating the production.
Yes,
Right?
yeah, that's right.
Because when you're the director
You
or
need the
artistic or whatever, you focus on the things you need to do, not on, you're missing, we sometimes miss the big picture because you're so busy doing the acting.
So I guess what I would say is, I know Ed had mentioned ad hoc. I said we just, you and Nancy, or you want other help to go through and put this together?
Why don't you just let them do it, because they know it.
So if they're gonna put it together, would somebody be willing to put a class on? I would come and learn how to be a producer. and
That's, I
then-
think that's what we need, is
I
we
mean,
need an instruction lesson to go through what we have, a workshop with it.
I think that's exactly what I meant by something.
Yeah.
And then we can have people that say, yes, this show, they have a binder,
Even if
they
we
have the checklist.
I think we need all 12 of us, 14, 16, whoever anybody wants to join us, so that we can go over the guidelines. It's not rocket science, and it wouldn't take more than an hour. We could incorporate it into a meeting. These are the guidelines, not just the guidelines for me or Kathy, but these are the guidelines for everybody to know about, because it can slip through the cracks so easily, because especially when you've been a long time older person. Oh, I assume.
So we'll just wait to hear that you guys have it ready, and then you can tell us when would a class be, and maybe by next meeting we'll set up a class,
The
okay?
other thing that I would like to see is once we have the guidelines written out, and we have a class, we have a bunch, right? Still want to know a specific show, who's the point person. on
Yes,
that.
you do.
Well, and that's who
Absolutely.
decides that.
Yeah.
Can we put that in?
No,
we think
no.
it's- it's
That-
all
that would-
people.
That would be, no, the season committee should not have
And
that.
here's,
Well,
It would
nobody
be-
volunteers.
No,
somebody needs to volunteer,
That's-
otherwise.
that's the
Well,
whole
what's the
thing
point
is,
of being on the board?
I don't know that 5 other people.
But what has happened.
Okay. I don't care if
it's a real simple thing. At the meeting in December or November, so we set up a question. Okay, everybody's been trained. Who is willing to be the producer for Anne Frank? Okay, I've got this volunteer, that volunteer, who thinks they have the time. Okay, you're going to be the one, you're the rep, the point person.
Yep.
Okay, it gets to be January. Who's going to be at that meeting? Who's going to be the producer for see how they run?
and I like this idea because if we appoint someone like, hey, Ken, we're gonna be the producer for show 3. Oh, but I wanted to be in show 3.
Yeah.
And now we have someone who's too involved in the show to take on the production aspect
It
of it.
should be done
You know,
like 2 months before the show.
The other-
It has to be done after the audition.
It hasn't done, honestly, what has happened in the past, as capable as the Knickerbockers are of putting on a show from A to Z, they have asked me if I would be the producer, because I can get in between them and say, but you didn't think of that, yes, I did, oh, you did, yes, you did. So it has worked to have a request made by it. But then I think if we establish this, then the producer for show 1 passes on information to the producer for show 2, and with notes.
That we encountered
This worked, this didn't.
We tried to get in touch with my daily news, we couldn't get hold of this.
So if we could pass it on in a smooth fashion, it would be so good.
I think this makes sense.
Okay, moving on. Do we need a standard poster size for show directors to know what to order?
Yes.
So, can I back up a second? What we just talked about, I think that should be included all in there under the producers.
Oh, yeah, it would be in the
This is
handbook.
a standard process across all shows, then it eliminates
Our feelings?
everything from point A to point B.
The last thing we need is, here's a poster, it doesn't match the other posters in size and now.
Well, so, yes, go ahead, Lynn.
Easy on this. I had, believe it or not, printing information. How much things cost, when you go through office maps, for different size posters, different size trifolds, things like that. This kind of information, easy peasy, handbook that goes with people. The one thing about posters is what has been learned over time. At one time, yes, we did print 200 posters to be handed out. We have, in the most recent times, past 3 years, discovered a lot of places aren't accepting posters anymore. We went down from doing the 11 by 17s, which we used to do initially. One was cost, two was the fact that a lot of the people that hung up the posters were requesting smaller ones. Again, we learned, it's a learning curve. Things like we buy one external poster. It sometimes gets used internally if there's time, but we buy one. The only times that there has ever been a second 24 by 36 created was if there was error, if it was a print thing that they gave us the second one, or somehow the one that we had got destroyed. But these are all just have been learning curve things. And so now information, and yes, if there had been an active producer with Alice, that was the question that would, you know, whoever was dealing with that producer and said, hey, this is what I want to do. Now, if for some reason we know the show's going to be fantastic and we get a $3,000 grant for other stuff, and the director says, hey, I really want to make this a 4-page playbill. We have the money to be able to do it. Can I get permission from the board to do it? And that's all it takes, is just requesting, requesting that bump in something. And so once we get the guidelines down, I think we're gonna be cool with it.
Sounds good. All right, let's move on to grants.
Okay. So, in the grant report that I sent out, can I just share with you? A way for you to share actually that way? No, where's the other part? No, I didn't. That was, yeah,
There should be there's 2 pages.
well, pencil it out.
There's a front and back that starts grant report and there's a front
I'll
back
just
that's creative
share
services.
this. Okay.
Just so as I have one that.
Yeah, you can have the whole thing. So if you just look at the front page of this, you can see with all of our stuff, including what we have the Twice Blessed, we're at about $59,000. The amount for Twice Blessed there is a little higher than what I put on the sheet, because they keep the money to credit card. So I had to subtract that out, and I had to guess in one case how much the credit card fee was from a specific donation, but it's right around that. One of the bummer things I learned this past week is that the Rural Community Grant Fund for $50,000 we didn't get. They said, call if you have questions. I can call them just so I can find out how to get better next time. You don't argue with people. But just to see if there's something we can learn from that. So that's kind of where we're at, and I would say that a lot of the smaller, easier to get grants, we've kind of run through that. So we have been asked by the Monterey Community Foundation to come back at the end of January, first part of February. They wanted to see how our Twice Blessed campaign went before they looked at talking real money with us. So we will definitely be doing that. I think I put in my last report, which probably most of you haven't seen, that Paul Reiner from Afternoon Esco was gone. He's now working in Bismarck. And Scott Huber is the new person. Scott had to kind of start over. Paul's drawings weren't very specific enough. And so he finished those up this week and sent them to me. And I would show you, but they didn't print out great for some reason. That escapes me. But anyway, they look very nice on screen, and we can certainly put them in Dropbox. He is going to send those out for bids. And he's hoping that we will have the bids back by the end of next week. And so I'm meeting with Jonathan either tomorrow or Wednesday, just to catch him up on where we are and to go through the application to make sure we don't have any holes on our end, that everything is there, that needs to be there so we can get that $75,000 that we want. Having said that, we had sort of arranged with Paul to have Ackerman and Estes go up on the roof, take some pictures, and give us a statement that said the roof was good for 10 years. Unfortunately, Ackerman and Estes are not going to be able to do that, just because of the handover between Paul and Scott. Scott has a workload, and all of a sudden that's what happened here. He just doesn't have time, which means in order to get that money, we have to hire a roofing contractor to get out a letter, go up, snap a couple pictures, and write up a thing that says this roof is good for 10 years, or to tell us that it's not. I'm hoping that that will be the case. Does anyone know a good roofing contractor that we should approach? Or how does the board want to handle that? I feel that's a little bit outside of my expertise as a grant writer. Just looking over at Randy, just saying, but, it is required, yeah.
I can ask.
Do we have any idea how much?
Letter from a licensed roofing contractor, architect, or engineer of 10 years of life, which will.
Do we, any concept?
I don't know, a lot of roofing contractors will put out a bid and they don't charge us for that process, some do. But this is more like an inspection.
Why don't you let me call letters?
Okay. So, because
I suggest Greenberg.
I think Greenberg did the roofing.
originally, yeah.
Originally, when we bought the building.
Exactly. I just was told that that was too long ago, right? So we had.
Right, I get that, but at least they.
But at least they were the ones that did, the person who's been on the roof most recently is the guy from Superior Heating.
Well, yeah, that meant construction, we were up there.
Really.
Mhm.
So,
I know I came out here one day and I found the truck from Ackerman and Esco, and the guy had
actually, the
a
last person who was on the roof was Sam.
Yeah.
doing drain, he was gonna do drain, drone photos, but it was a simple camp. Not here. He was parked right out. They did, central.
Okay.
They just do a fly, they flew a drone.
Okay, you said that Scott's got new drawings? Yeah. Did we have to pay for those now?
No, because Paul was supposed to have done those. So we weren't about to do that, yeah. Thank you very much. These are the drawings he brought.
Okay.
So, and he's just gonna pay.
Larry says Donnie Justin from Justin Roofing,
Justin,
because it is a
We
flat.
have to have the bids. in
Oh,
order
Justin.
Justin, Donnie Justin.
Yeah, well, they did stuff for us.
Was it?
Yeah, they were the roofers that they moved.
What's that?
Were they? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But.
Well, you could just send that to me.
Um,
Sounds good, okay.
so I just,
He will send us the phone number,
okay,
and
Randy will call, he's gonna call Greenberg too. They did the original one.
did they? Okay.
It was Greenberg, right?
Greenberg.
Well, either one, but he said it depends on if it's flat, so it's,
Yeah, they do flat roof.
so, yeah, well, either one.
you know, and I'm sure that we're not gonna pay some amount of fee, but if it's, a couple $100 or something, we can go ahead and do it.
When you get the estimate, send out an email, you can do an email.
Will do. Okay. Ron Carnac did launch his, request to cover Sandy Carnac, and, we've had a couple big contributions. What, so thank you. For contributing, and to Lauren Garnes, for contributing $1,000. We have not heard of the address grant, which is small, it's only 3,000, but I did see an article. They're working something up, so I'm not. On the back page of this, if you flip it over, you can read most of this. If you're talking to people, please remind them to make their stuff out to those community foundation. We had to take one over that we made out to multiple players, but it's essentially plus and one. And then she's got to cross it out and write. When I made my spiel on the show, I didn't think to say that. Some grants that are up for consideration. One is a Creative Forces Engagement Grant. This is from the National Endowment for the Arts and New America Arts Alliance. This is not money for capital campaign. This is money for a specific kind of project to strengthen our relationships and activities that we do specifically with the ear.
So if we were to say, do a show at the next convention they have at the Fairface, would that be something you can use this money for?
Yeah, probably. I say that because what the money is intended to be used for is to develop a program with Fundraising State on how to engage airmen into understanding theater as a way to boost morale. And so we need a small committee to work on it. It's the maximum amount is up to $10,000. The due date is December 15th, which I don't think we're going to make. So what I'm proposing, but this is one that's going to come around every year. So if we can study it and have a group of people study it in order to do it for next year, that would be ideal. I feel I would need at least 3 people who would step forward from the board and say, I'll be on that group. I would probably approach Tim, who's not on the board, but who's just got connection. So be one person he'll say yes. But you know, he would be one. So Aisha, you don't have to decide tonight, but you know me. If I don't get 3 people, then I'm not doing that. The U.S. Bank Foundation will do operational funds of the capital, and it's only quite a small number of capital campaigns. But we would have to have a U.S. Bank employee on the board to go after capital, not for the operational program. We could ask for a small grant from the Missouri Children's Theater or something, but I need a contact at the U.S. Bank to say no.
Just to be Chad Vogel, like we do.
That's the one downtown, isn't there? She got a road in there.
Okay, well, I won't be submitting one to them anytime soon, because I need a contact. I mean, I could call them. And say, theater, but another foundation that I've been looking at is the Ryman Foundation. It's Boy and Bobby Ryman. They own the Taste of Home magazine, and they fund their there's a bunch of companies in North Dakota's on their list. In Nashville, but North Dakota's on their list. We can submit any time and they don't give a specific amount. I could say under or whatever, so I will look at that. Just a reminder, the North Dakota Council on the Arts Project, have still some remaining due dates coming up for this year. And that's for their special project. But if we wanted to get one of those for the Missoula Children's Theater, then we'd have to have it before June 30th. And I don't know if that's the right timing.
Well, it is the right timing, you know, it's usually June.
Well, do you want me to put in for one of those? You know, other kinds of funding.
We do have the match paper that we're working on for Magic College.
Do you need money for that?
Well, we're gonna build,
Yes.
pieces and stuff.
Yes,
Be
it's a
money.
good answer.
Yes, it's a- yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll need costumes and
Ballpark
props
figure,
and
1,000,
pieces.
2,000, 3,000. Well, just remember, for the 3,000. Okay.
Since this is a new project for us, I'd say 1,000 would be fair. I don't want to.
Okay.
And then regarding Missoula. So we got that Missoula, we can tell you.
So I was gonna wait till we got to that, but.
Oh, sorry.
Got it now, if you want me to. If you're
Well,
doing grants, I don't want
The
to
other
interrupt.
thing, I'll just say one more thing, I'll be done, and that is the North Dakota Council on the Arts also has institutional grants from $3,000 to $11,000, and that does cover operating costs. So that if we can say, well, this is how much money, let's say we said, we're pretty sure that in our next season, we'll bring in at least $5,000 from our various performances. We know we'll get more than that, but we're for sure we'll get 5,000. Then that becomes our match, and then we apply for 5,000. And so the 5,000 that we get, if we get that grant, we can put toward our operating expenses, or we can put it toward, pretty much anything we want. Those run from 3,000 to 11,000. There's only one catch, and that is you must have at least one staff person in a contract or a salary position. We don't have that currently, so I can't apply for that, but we have had that in the past. So I want the board to think about that.
What I only know from previously working with this, the chamber corral gets that grant because they have a director. So, I mean, we have a director for each show. I don't know.
But I think he's under contract.
I don't know.
Yeah, it has, there's some sort
But there is, they get it for open request.
If we were to do this on practice, would that be considered a contract position?
don't know, I could qualify him.
Well, what about a contracted position for each director of each show? We have a contracted position per se, yes, try to figure out, we have a contracted position for 5 shows for, I don't know, $1,000, whatever, $500. It's just that we divide that.
Yeah, the
It's not
contract,
one person.
I'd have to train.
but the question is, do we have to have a person attached to the contract?
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's-
a staff member in a contract or salary.
It's like if the director of each show
So with a
is
contract,
a contract for that, for a director for the shows, but we're not saying that it's John Smith and Paul.
I think we're trying to bend their rules to.
To fit us, yeah.
To fit us.
It's
And I
not
don't
just
think
right.
I don't think that's
how they
what
work.
it
Some theaters have like a director in residence,
yes.
which would be like an annual director. every year. We could do that as a contract, have like a 3-year contract, or I don't know how many years of a director in residence, and I don't think that would affect your.
No, that's true.
But then we would be limiting ourselves to having one director for all shows.
No, like one, they would direct one of the 5 every year for like I don't know.
So not like every show.
Yeah,
So why don't we do a resident producer instead of a director?
We tried to do that.
What was the position?
Exactly.
It was an artistic- no, it was an artistic.
Artistic.
And that would be.
I would think that, you know.
So we might need to either have a meeting or something with grants and, you know, I don't know.
Rather than going on.
So do we want to know about the summer programming? Do we want to talk about that while we have this
Okay, sure.
open?
And the rest of that report, it's just the details. I got you. Sorry. I just wish to point out that the conversation about Congress position has happened before.
Sure.
Yeah, but now, but again, we gotta move that.
We do have to talk about it, yeah.
Do you want me to skip to the children's center? Okay, Billy, anything?
No.
I have something for building. Yesterday, as Ed and Brittany and I were leaving after the intermission, we observed a vandal breaking glass windows in the alley between the tattoo parlor and the garage. It was an older guy that went into the Milton Towers.
Really?
Breaking window out. It was, I'm assuming it was already a broken window and he was just breaking out glass.
Well, he was breaking more, because I watched him, you know.
No, I think that window was
Yeah,
already
he was
broken.
breaking the glass pieces that had already been broken, because the police officer accessed from that.
Yeah, that window has been, bricked over on the other side, so I'm assuming it was already broken.
But my concern
But it's
is,
still bad.
we have some of our security cameras up. Let's see if we can get at least those functioning. Because if somebody is willing to do that, who knows, that I come down the aisle.
Yeah, we need some help.
I called the police.
What's the show's done? So,
All right, social media.
So the biggest thing for social media right now is just that we're running the last two giveaways for Alice. Those will be drawn on Wednesday. Trinity has been kind of taking over our Instagram for the show, which has been pretty fun. And seems to be getting a lot of positive
Yeah,
response.
one of them got like,
Yeah,
it's quite a bit.
yeah, it is. So that's really awesome. But other than that, we're pretty status quo for social media.
Will we be able to do whatever you do for inside?
2 minutes, that would be easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, shows maybe.
Yeah. Box office.
Not much to say other than we are almost sold out before. We sold out on, I think we had 4 seats left on Sunday.
Are we planning for any more of this?
There's quite a few, there's a lot left, and we've only got 3 more shows.
So I take that as no.
I wish I know why that happened, because it looks fine on my end.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what happened.
Just a website.
I know, I was so disappointed.
Past shows. Ashley, do you have anything about Alice or you're good here?
I think we're, I was looking at how many programs we got left, and I mean, depending on how, if Saturday and Sunday do fill out more, I think we're okay.
Which kind of ones are pretty.
I haven't like counted, I looked at it, like, I was gonna look at it, we should ask for people to recycle.
If you, I mean, if you can get a count of what's left, we can make an estimation if we need to do, secondary grant.
Yeah.
You can always just ask people if they're not gonna take the program.
Anything else? You're good? Okay, and Frank, we're underway, we have a cast, grant cast. We have all my tech people in place. The only, thing we need to discuss about tonight is, whether or not to give the 8th graders who do a and rank lesson during the fourth quarter. I guess it's a pretty big lesson.
It's huge.
And I've been in talks with the 8th grade teacher, and she would absolutely love it if we could give that. I know we talked about, putting on free student ticket with the purchase of an adult, to try to get their parents to come to and stuff. It's about just over 500 8th graders in this town. So don't forget to. Oh, there was 3, she told me Memorial, is that the base? Okay, and then Jim Hill and Ramsey, so.
I mean, we don't have that many kids, but another thing. Yeah.
So, I mean,
But if they do a thing on in front too, then we
Yeah, and then,
reach out to
I don't know
them.
if we should, Ryan.
Would they be invited for a specific day? Or just-
no, I think,
It would be a buy one, get one.
yeah, on the ticket, I might even just put my email address and phone number to have them call me to get reservations. I think that might just be easier.
We could do it with a coupon code.
If you could give me the QR code, but not them, because I'm afraid if that just got out, then everybody could just use it.
They would have to bring their own ticket though, because when they did that as an offer of it, for Hansel and Gretel, they gave a 5th grader a ticket. And then they had to bring the ticket to the performance.
Were they able to make reservations in advance though? That's where the sticky part comes from.
I think I came to the, just to the front desk. And I was out of there.
We went to.
In the interest of time, the question is, should we do it? Then I think we could vote on that, and then we can figure out what the details.
Right, I'll meet with somebody, maybe Lynn or something.
Or we can figure out the-
Right,
So,
yeah.
I motion that we, do the 8th grade students.
Okay, so there's a motion to give tickets to all 8th grade students. Then a second, all those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion carried. Thank you. I think it's a great thing to do for everybody. Yeah, and the teacher is really excited. House,
I think we're good.
good concessions. I think we'll just talk later about that. You good with that, or
Yeah, but,
unless you have something
I
pressing?
did post, the guidelines when using the concession area, and just a brief, what to make sure you do at the end of the night, stuff like that. It's on the board.
Youth program. So Brittany and I were talking, and I've been talking with the lady from Missoula. Did I call you Courtney? Okay, sorry. The price went up again for Missoula, so we're looking at almost $3,400. And that's just the base, then there's the pianist, and then there's the, what else? The video and the room and board and stuff like that. So, I mean, we're looking at probably close to $4,000 for them. Yes, we did get a lot of sponsors last year, but that was exhausting as well. But Brittany and I were discussing if our proposal would be, we could put on our own children's show. Brittany and I would direct it and do auditions, and maybe we could pull in a costumer. And I don't know if we have any of those, but. Oh, well, I mean, she was great too. So, but we were proposing that those that are involved, if we need a pianist, if we need, Brittany, myself, a costumer, whatever we need, $2,000. And we thought we would just split it between all of us, there wouldn't be housing, we wouldn't have to, we could still look for, sponsors, it would just be a lot less, we wouldn't have to, keep going and going after we got that. Just an idea, there's a website that has tons of
60-minute, 45 to 60-minute shows, which is about what theirs is, and then if we added music and stuff, or whatever, we could do that probably. So there's lots of shows out there, it's just a matter of getting the board's approval, and then we'll sit down and figure it out.
Relatively inexpensive royalties on.
Yeah, so those, the ones that I saw were $99, that included everything, and then if you wanted 2 shows, it was an additional $49. So I didn't think that was too bad. So, okay, getting a motion. Well, then a question, maybe.
No, I was gonna.
Oh, sorry.
Make a motion that you proceed to investigate this further.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Sorry, Lynn motion, Colin second. All those opposed? All those abstain? Okay, motion carried. 14, perfect. All right, and if anybody else wants to put their thoughts in, okay, here we- newsletter.
Well, you've been putting out a lot of, I mean, it isn't exactly.
It's not exactly a newsletter, but I've been putting out an email.
Maybe we should go back, wait until the show closes, and then maybe, you don't have to write it or anything, but if you have some thoughts or ask some questions to kids, what was their favorite part, send it to my house. So,
I think my preference would be to put something like that on the website.
well, but that's what this is for, you can put it there too.
Yeah, and then put the problem is you send a really big news, a fairly big newsletter, a lot of text and a lot of stuff. You send it out as an email, nobody reads it.
Well, it doesn't have to be a ton.
But what I would do is put the full version on the website
Oh,
and email out a condensed version with a link.
Oh,
to it.
sure.
Okay. Fundraising, think we're good on that.
So I talked to the people at PNLT and they're obviously not doing the noon shows, but they said that if we wanted to give them the dates, they'll put them on their calendar. So then like when someone goes on the PNLT calendar, our show will appear. And they said that they'll let me know if they start doing the noon shows.
Tenant building, we can hear, discuss that in here. Sponsorship. And on that for now.
We're kind of tabling at the moment.
Bylaws.
Hey, guys, take one. It's done. It has been emailed to every one of you mid-October. Okay?
Oh, that's good.
Late October, okay, in October. I would like to put it, for both, please. I want it off my plate. So,
I'll motion.
Okay, so Ed's motion to approve the new bylaws. Aisha has second. All those in favor of approving the new bylaws? All those opposed? All those abstain? One abstain.
One abstain.
And motion is carried.
you're the one who responded to me, I know.
But I'm not, I know it's in there.
Okay.
Thank you for all your work. We appreciate you guys for doing this. 50th.
Okay, I'm gonna start to organize the show parts and those kinds of things. We'll meet up in January. And while we're at it, if your season thing, I think our next meeting, let's just look at January. In the meantime, if somebody has something that you want to send in, feel free to send it to me. We'll hash it, in January so that we can kind of get because we only met once.
Yeah.
And, just kind of the guidelines and who was kind of half interested, so, I think look at it early January for that meeting.
How long does it take for like
Not
Generally, generally the same day.
Oh, okay.
And once, at at least 4 concourse theatricals for Samuel French. Once they're approved, you've got 90 days. So it's a.
anything else?
I
Okay,
have the pins, we have the little pins.
they're $10 donation.
Donation. The money will go towards subsidizing the gala. It would really be nice if everybody on the board did eventually buy one. Right now, they're in the office and file, or you can see me in the concession stand during the show. Actually sold 2 to people that are not part of the board.
Okay, so we just have one announcement. Randy and I would like to host a Christmas party here for all of you board members, your families. December 10th, that's a Friday at 6 p.m. Dinner, dessert, music, everything. So please let me know if you're gonna be here so that I can plan enough food.
What time did you say?
42 people.
42?
2 for us.
6 P.M.?
December 10th at 6 p.m. Yeah.
It's right in the green.
I don't know.
Oh.
Right here, 6
I
p.m.
haven't read that part.
2.
Okay, yeah, just me.
And one little tiny thing, during it is the Christmas season, people are buying things on Amazon. Please don't forget Amazon Smile, because we do have MRP receiving a percentage through Amazon Smile.
And usually
And
after,
that's mine.
yep, so if you go to smile.amazon.com,
Smile.
Oh, yeah, Smile.
Take out the www,
Yeah.
put in smile.
It works just like regular Amazon,
You-
it's just people get a.
you do have to log in, you do have to select Mouser or Players to receive a donation. And usually Amazon Smile does an increased donation from Thanksgiving to Christmas.
Well, that's good. Once you sign up, she's done, for Amazon. Yeah, it will.
Our next meeting is in 2 weeks, Monday, or in 3 weeks, something like that, December 13th, but I'll hopefully see you all at the Christmas party here at the theater. Until we move, then we can have it. Meeting adjourned, sorry. And you're gonna break anybody? Or-
No, he's leaving me at home. He's just a jerk.
Yeah, how do you feel about it? Actually, I'm gonna bring the dog and the cat.
No,
Yeah, you're both pulling out back. You can bring it.
We had a friend who, she was very allergic to cats and dogs, but also very much loves them.
I had a cat for years.